They say patience is a virtue, but few of us truly understand what it means to live with patience every single day. In the heart of rural Germany, surrounded by rolling green fields and the sound of bells from a distant church tower, there lives a man who has been practicing patience not for years, but for almost a century. He is 90 years old, a farmer whose hands are calloused from soil and whose eyes carry the slow wisdom of the earth. When he speaks, you realize something extraordinary. His definition of patience is not just about waiting, but about understanding the rhythm of life itself. I first met him in a small wooden farmhouse on the edge of Bavaria. His house smelled of old timber, fresh bread, and the faint smoke of a wood-burning stove. He sat by the window where the light fell softly on his weathered face. His name does not matter as much as his story, because his story could belong to every elder whose life has been shaped by the land. He looked at me with a quiet smile, the kind that takes years to cultivate, and said, "People today are in a hurry to arrive, but they have forgotten how to travel." That sentence alone told me he saw the world differently. As we talked, he described how farming had taught him patience in ways modern life rarely does. He remembered planting wheat as a boy during the late 1930s, pressing seeds into the earth with his small hands. Back then, there were no machines, only horses and wooden tools. Each seed was a prayer, each season a lesson. He said that children today grow impatient if a video takes more than 5 seconds to load, but he once waited 6 months just to see if a single field would survive the storms. In his voice, there was no bitterness, only a gentle reminder that patience is not something you practice in minutes, it is something you live in decades. I asked him what patience had given him that nothing else could. He leaned back, took a deep breath, and answered slowly, "Patience gave me freedom. When you are patient, the world cannot control you. The rain may come late, the harvest may be small, people may disappoint you, but you remain unbroken." His words sank deep into me because they were not advice from a book, but lessons carved into his very bones. And then he added something unique, something I had never heard before. Impatience is the hunger of the soul, but patience is its bread. He told me about the war years, when food was scarce and fear was constant. Neighbors grew desperate and many gave up hope. But he remembered his mother who told him, "We cannot eat bread today if we do not wait for the oven to bake." Those simple words carried him through hunger, uncertainty, and the long winters of despair. For him, patience was not passive waiting, it was active endurance. It was choosing faith when logic said there was none. He explained that the soil does not rush, the sun does not hurry, and the rivers do not race. Nature's rhythm is steady, and if you align with it, life feels less like a battle and more like a song. At 90 years old, he still wakes up before sunrise, opens the shutters, and looks across the fields. He cannot work the land as he once did, but he says the land still works on him. Watching the seasons turn reminds him that patience is not about resisting time, but about flowing with it. He told me that modern people live like they are running across thin ice, afraid to stop, afraid to listen. But if you keep running, he said, you never hear the music hidden in silence. That sentence stayed with me. One of his most powerful stories was about a single apple tree he planted in 1954. For the first 10 years, the tree gave almost nothing. Neighbors laughed, saying it was a weak tree. He kept tending to it, pruning gently, waiting. By the 15th year, the tree began to bloom. By the 20th year, it gave more apples than any other in the village. Now, nearly 70 years later, that tree still stands, still offering fruit to his grandchildren. He told me that tree taught him more about patience than any teacher, because it showed him that what begins weak may end strong, and what takes time often lasts the longest. I asked him what advice he would give to young Europeans living in fast cities like Berlin, Paris, or Rome, where life is full of deadlines, noise, and constant movement. He smiled again, as though he had been asked this many times. Plant something you may never eat. Do something today whose reward will come when you are old. That is patience. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of 90 years. Imagine building a life where not every effort is for immediate reward, but for a legacy that others will inherit. What struck me most was how his patience was not limited to farming or waiting for crops. It was woven into his relationships, his marriage, his parenting. He said he and his wife were married for 60 years and their secret was patience. She was not always right and I was not always wrong. We had storms. But patience is not just about waiting for storms to end. It is about learning to dance in the rain. That unique sentence made me realize that patience is the hidden currency of love. Without it, everything falls apart. With it, even the hardest days can be endured. He explained that technology today makes people believe speed is progress. Messages arrive instantly, food is delivered within minutes, and entertainment is endless. But he looked at me with sharp eyes and said, "Speed does not equal life. A train going fast may still be heading in the wrong direction." That line hit me with force, because it's something no one else says in a world addicted to acceleration. He argued that patience gives direction, while impatience only gives distraction. As the evening came, the golden Bavarian light painted the fields, and his voice grew softer. He told me about the final stage of patience, the patience of the soul. At 90 years old, he knows his days are numbered, but he does not fear death. He said, "The last harvest is not frightening when you have waited for every season before it." He compared his life to bread rising in the oven. At first, the dough resists, then it swells, then it browns, and finally it is ready to be shared. He believes death is the final sharing of what life has baked inside us. That metaphor was so unique, I knew it would stay with me forever. As I left his farmhouse, I looked back at the man who had lived through wars, through hunger, through endless winters and abundant summers. His entire life was proof that patience is not weakness, it is power. In a world that runs faster each day, he stands like an oak tree, slow but unshakable. His story reminded me that patience is not about waiting for life to change, it is about learning to see life as it is and finding peace in its rhythm. And perhaps the most important thing he told me, the sentence that belongs to him alone, was this: "The earth does not rush to be a mountain, and yet it becomes one. So why should we?" That is what a 90-year-old German farmer teaches about patience. Not just that it is a virtue, but that it is the quiet force that makes life worth living.